we continue to read the case of Andrea Gordon, the NCB employee who was fined for larceny. So remember now, I myself, I'm not a lawyer. And here, you should check out the link in the description of this video. Right? Let me just say before I continue reading, it's important, for you, member of the public, to know the law, to read the acts, and to help in understanding those acts from cases such as this. But of course, you are busy, you don't have time to read, to sit down and read such long documents. So I'm reading them for you. Alright? So here, we continue. Aggravating circumstances. In sentencing the defendant, I have to give consideration to the aggravating circumstances, which include: A. The defendant was in a position of trust. B. The sum in question are quite substantial, that is over $34 million. C. The defendant took the funds over an extended period of time. D. The funds were used for personal gain. E. The elaborate nature of the attempt to conceal the source of the funds. It says if the funds should be of the funds. F. This offense may result in the integrity of the bank being undermined, as well as loss of confidence in the bank. Okay, so these are the aggravating circumstances, the circumstances that work against her, against Andrea Gordon. Now, the mitigating circumstances, so these would be circumstances that might make the judge consider easing up somewhat on her. I have also considered the mitigating circumstances relating to the defendant that include: the defendant has no previous conviction, the defendant has a good social inquiry report, and that the defendant pleaded guilty. The sentence. Count 1 to 3. After considering the type of offense, the plea in mitigation, my starting point for this offense is 6 years. Due to the aggravating circumstances listed above, I will add 3 years. That would increase the sentence to 9 years. Okay. Now, taking into account the mitigating circumstances, I will reduce the sentence by 1 year for a good social inquiry report and 1 year due to her good antecedent report. That's the report that investigated whether she had any previous conviction, which brings the sentence down to 7 years. The defendant did enter a guilty plea, and as such I will grant a discount in this matter. I, however, have to take into consideration that the evidence against the defendant was overwhelming, as A. She confessed to the withdrawal of funds to the manager of the fraud unit of the bank. Yeah? She confessed to that. So that would be a circumstance that might ease up on the sentencing. B. the unique code that was assigned to her by the bank was utilized in the transaction. So those are evidence that there is no doubt that she is indeed the person who committed these acts. All right. Now, the confession here shows that she indeed was the person who committed the act, and the fact that she had the unique code, nobody else had that code. All right. In light of the foregoing, I would only give a 20% reduction for her guilty plea. This would reduce her sentence by 1 year and 6.5 months. For ease of calculation, I will round it up to 1 year and 7 months, which reduces the sentence to 5 years and 5 months. The sentence is further reduced, taking into account the time she spent in custody, which is 1 month. On count 1, the defendant is sentenced. Says sentences, it should be sentenced to 5 years and 4 months. She is sentenced to the time on count 2 and 3 as well. Counts 4 to 6. The starting point is 3 years. Due to the aggravating circumstances, it is increased by 3 years, that is to 6 years. It is reduced by 1 year for good social inquiry report and another year for good antecedent report. The sentence is reduced by 2 years to 4 years. The defendant pleaded guilty and she is given a 20% reduction that reduces the sentence by 1 year to 3 years. The sentence is reduced for the period of time the defendant was in custody, which is 1 month. The defendant is sentenced to 2 years and 11 months on count 4 to 6 of the indictment. On looking up the meaning of indictment, I see that it means if you say one thing, let me read. Yes, a little technical glitch with the phone, but let me continue. If you say one thing is an indictment of another thing, you mean that it shows how bad the other thing is. Example, it's a sad indictment of society that police officers are regarded as easy targets by thugs. Okay. An indictment is a formal. Alright. So, indictment. It's showing how bad things are. Now, count 7 to 13. The starting point in this matter will be 8 years. So count 7 to 13. Let me just take a look here. Okay. Alright, let's go back. Count 7 to 13. The starting point in this matter will be 8 years. Due to the aggravating circumstances, I will increase the sentence by 3 years to 11 years. That's 8 plus 3. I will reduce the sentence by 1 year for good antecedent report and 1 year, it should be. And 1 year says 1 years. 1 year, that's a typographical error. 1 year for good social inquiry report. which would reduce the sentence to 9 years. I will give her 20% discount. That would reduce the sentence by 16 months to 7 years and 6.5 months, which I will round up to 7 years and 7 months. Her sentence would be further reduced by her time in custody, which is 1 month. The defendant is sentenced to 7 years and 6 months on counts 7 to 13. Conclusion. The defendant is sentenced to, this is Andrea Gordon, this is her sentence. Count 1 to 5 years and 4 months. Count 2 to 5 years and 4 months. Count 3 to 5 years and 4 months. Count 4 to 2 years and 11 months. Count 5 to 2 years and 11 months. Count 6 to 2 years and 11 months. Count 7 to 7 years and 6 months. Count 8 to 7 years and 6 months. Count 9 to 7 years and 6 months. Count 10 to 7 years and 6 months. Count 11 to 7 years and 6 months. Count 12 to 7 years and 6 months. Count 13 to 7 years and 6 months. The sentences are to run concurrently. So they will run all together at the same time. But being that the 7 years and 6 months is the longest, it means that these 5 years and 4 months and the 2 years and 11 months would run alongside the 7 years and 6 months. So she, Andrea Gordon, will spend 7 years and 6 months in prison.